We are traveling back in time today to a vast desolate landscape known only by its nickname, the Land of the Morning Calm. The war we speak of is the Korean War. It began swiftly, brutally, and unexpectedly in the twilight hours of June 25, 1950. It's a conflict often overshadowed by larger shadows of World War II and Vietnam. This, my friends, is the Forgotten War. But to the nearly 1.8 million Americans who served, and especially to the 54,000 who never came home, it was the most unforgettable, terrifying thing they ever knew. Picture the opening months. The world powers had barely dismantled the war machine of the 1940s when the first communist wave crashed over the 38th parallel. The fear of what communism could bring was met with the reaction that prompted U.S. intervention. North Korean tanks, Soviet-backed and overwhelming, swept south. The poorly prepared South Koreans and Americans were forced to push into a tiny, desperate pocket around the port city of Pusan. The odds were impossible. Every man knew it. If Pusan fell, all of Korea fell. For 6 desperate weeks, the scorching humidity of a Korean summer, they held that perimeter, a line drawn not with maps but with sheer exhausted will. It was the moment the United Nations, led by America, decided the 20th century would not belong to unchecked aggression. Then came the audacity. General Douglas MacArthur, a man of soaring ego and unquestionable brilliance, conceived the Incheon landing, a desperate high-tide assault behind enemy lines. It was a tactical stroke of genius. The invasion succeeded. Seoul was retaken, and the North Korean army was shattered, retreating in disarray. The mission changed. Instead of merely defending South Korea, the United Nations now intended to conquer the North and unite the entire peninsula under the democratic banner. The victorious UN forces surged north toward the last physical marker of the peninsula, the Yalu River, the border with communist China. And then came the trap. As American troops pushed towards the river in November of 1950, intelligence reports were dismissed. Warnings were ignored. Suddenly, without warning, the mountains erupted. Hundreds of thousands of Chinese People's Volunteers, but most likely they were more like voluntold, poured across the border. They were not modern mechanized soldiers, but they were an endless, disciplined wave of humanity, overwhelming the stretched and isolated UN lines. The retreat from the Yalu was a nightmare of snow and ice. The soldiers fought not just the enemy, but the cruelest winter on record. The Battle of the Chosin River became legendary. 15,000 United Nations troops surrounded the outnumbered 10-1, fighting their way out of a frozen, desolate, horrible place. The temperature dropped to 35 degrees below zero. Legend has it that men had to thaw their weapons with fire to make them shoot. They fought not to win, but to survive, famously declaring, "We are not retreating, we are attacking in a different direction." The war that began as a blitz had become a brutal, bloody, frozen survival exercise. For the next 2 years, the conflict devolved into a positional savage trench war, hauntingly similar to World War I. Battles weren't fought over cities or borders, but over hills with names like Heartbreak Ridge, Pork Chop Hill, and Old Baldy. These were meat grinder struggles, fought purely to gain leverage at the negotiating table. The lives of brave young men were measured not in acres, but in minutes of artillery fire. The war ended, or more accurately, it was paused. In July 1953, with an armistice, not a treaty, the dividing line was reset almost exactly where it began, the 38th parallel. The sacrifice was immense. The political outcome was ambiguous. But the objective was met. The price paid preserved a free, democratic South Korea and contained the expansion of communism in Asia. The legacy of the Korean War is the debt we owe to the young men who endured the cold, the fear, and the unyielding brutality to draw the line in the sand, or in this case, rather, snow. But hear this. For decades, the sacrifices made in that cruel peninsula were largely unacknowledged. The public moved on, but the veterans, the families, and the history never forgot. 38 years later, in conjunction with the 38th parallel in 1991, the United States Mint issued a coin finally to honor those brave Americans. The Korean War Veteran Memorial Silver Dollar. It is a simple, beautiful piece of metal. On one side, the iconic marching soldiers trudging through the cold, helmeted, and grim in a direct reference to the Chinese intervention and the long retreat. On the reverse, the powerful image of the Korean peninsula, divided by that 38th parallel. This coin is more than silver. It's a physical acknowledgement, a tangible memory that the tens of thousands of lives lost and the freezing terror of the forgotten war were not forgotten by the nation after all. This coin carries the weight of sacrifice, and every ounce of it speaks to the cost of liberty. Let us place this most special commemorative half-dollar on a 60-point scale to see if it's right for you. Our obverse focuses on a single frame of courage, a slice of time where the whole massive mechanism of war is narrowed down to a single focused point, a military collage of sorts. Down to the water, you'll see the colossal silhouette of destiny. The Navy battleships and cruisers, their massive presence hammered the coastline, clearing the path. They represent the overwhelming industrial might of a nation committed to the fight. They are the foundation upon which the battle is fought. But your eye is drawn higher, over the surf and the sand to the hill, the objective, the enemy. And moving against that hospital slope is not a column, not a company, but one single soldier. He is a speck, weighed down by gear, driven by primal, terrible necessity. He is running, charging. The fate of a continent and his very life rests on the next few feet of bloody, unforgiving earth. He is the will of a free people, condensed into muscle and bone. Above him, in the thin, clear air, shrieking past the clouds like silver daggers, are two beautiful, deadly machines, F-86 Sabre jets. They are the shield and sword of the modern age, slicing through the sky, ensuring that no enemy aircraft dares touch the ground forces. They are the promise, the guardian angels made of metal and speed, providing the cover that stretches from shoreline to sky. This scene, my friend, is the portrait of the soldier, an individual man relying on the combined terrifying power of sea and air, and his own raw courage. It is the story of a lone hero amplified by a world of steel. I love the way that the word Korea stands out as a reminder of where we have been. This scene is fantastic and designed by the legendary John Marconti. It is stunning and it scores a 10. The reverse has a bird's eye view in more ways than one. We turn our attention not to the clash of arms, but to the silence of symbolism. This piece of metal, minted decades after the last shot was fired, contains the profound aftermath of the Korean War. At its heart, you see the simple, tragic outline of the Korean Peninsula, a beautiful country held tight by the sea, but scarred by a line, the 38th parallel. This line is the physical manifestation of war, a political boundary that split a single people, a single history, a single future right down the middle. It is a scar left by an armistice, a perpetual pause that reminds us that peace remains fragile and unfinished business. But look closer, friends. Look at this symbol right here. This is the heart and soul of the nation, the Korean equivalent of the Chinese Taijitu. It is the swirling yin and yang, the crimson and blue representing the unity of opposites, the perfect natural balance of the cosmos. This symbol tells us that a nation, by its very nature, yearns for wholeness and harmony. It is the spiritual statement of unity placed directly over the map that shows the painful political division. This is the coin's first silent cry. Despite the physical split, the soul of Korea remains one. And now observe the vigilant guardian right here to the side of the peninsula, the fierce, noble head of the American bald eagle, ever watching, ever ready. It is placed not aggressively, but watchfully positioned to forever look over that divided land. The eagle, our own symbol for freedom and resolve, it is the representation of the promise made in 1950 and kept through the blood and frozen terror. It signifies the immense sustained military and moral commitment of the United States and the United Nations. It is the commitment to stand guard, to ensure that the fragile democracy saved in the South is never threatened by invasion. It reminds us that in war we fight not just for territory, but for the fundamental balance and freedom of a people. The toning of this coin is amazing and adds a little bit of depth on its merits. This particular coin was minted in Denver, as you can see, with the D mint mark, and our designer's mark TJF, which you see right here in this little cove, can be seen above the final S of the word states, noting that Thomas James Farrell created this stunning scene, which I score a 10. Now we move to Mintage, which honestly shocks me a little bit. I was assuming that this coin would be minted with at least 1 million or more, but as I looked at Numista, I was surprised that this Denver mint version actually only had 213,049 minted. This is a ton when it comes to many standard bullion coins of today, but this is not a bullion coin. It's a 90% silver commemorative dollar. And for that case, it does have a pretty dang good mintage, which means it scores a 4. Now we roll on to cultural significance. I do not think we need to draw any direct lines to the importance of the issuing nation of America into a war she fought. It is a chapter of our history that many unfortunately have forgot, and many have never read, but the lessons are just as relevant today. Just ask yourself these questions. If the United States thinks that one type of government, in this case communism, is completely wrong and dangerous, is it right for the U.S. to send its own soldiers across the world to stop that idea from spreading, even if it means stepping into a fight that isn't ours and turning a small disagreement into a permanent frozen division? When thousands of soldiers die and the war ends with both sides back at the exact same starting line, how do we decide if all those lives were worth the result? If the main goal was to stop the enemy from getting farther south, does that tie count as a true win, or is it a tragedy because nothing else really changed except the cost? If a person makes the ultimate sacrifice, giving their life to protect the country, but then the country forgets about the war and doesn't talk much about it, does the silence make the sacrifice feel less important or valuable? Do we have a duty to keep the memory of every war alive, or does this importance of a soldier's courage exist even if history moves on? These are tough questions that take time to formulate logical answers. Answers that we still cannot seem to find consensus on. This coin therefore reflects a fabric of American identity, the same now as it did since its existence, and scores a 10. Collectibility is next. This is a commemorative coin from the US Mint. It has a strikingly low mintage for this type of coin, and what's more interesting is that there are many tokens featuring the Korean War, yet this is the only government-issued coin I could find. This makes the coin extremely collectible in my eyes, and it scores an 8. Uniqueness is our last category, and as mentioned, this is the only Korean War coin from the US Mint I could find, which is amazing and also sad in a way. There are a handful of Korean War coins from other nations, notably North and South Korea and China. This being said, it scores a 9, and I really think the US Mint should have done more than just one coin, but maybe that's a thought for another video. This means that our Korean War commemorative coin from the US Mint crosses the 38th parallel into the elite status with a 51 out of 60. You've heard the history and significance. I have had, personally, family that fought in the Korean War, so this is a coin for my collection. I would think that most Americans would have at least a desire for such a coin in the merits of our nation's historical path, mintage, and design, but I cannot speak on your behalf. So is this a coin that you would purchase at market value if it were in front of you? Let me know in the comments, and until next time, please remember to stay classy and current with the culture of currency.